Hey friends, welcome back to the table where we do tarot. And I am now just more recently getting people who are actually interactive with the tarot readings. Um, and they're sort of like asking more questions. And so I want to give a little bit of insight and like how this came about in my life and like why the way that I do it as compared to the way that other people do it or whatever other readers that you might see. So, with tarot, it's like I really need to look up the history of it because I heard somebody say that it comes from like ancient Egypt and I don't know because when I read the Bible, I see a lot of the symbolism that's in tarot in the Bible. Um, so I don't know when this kind of all came around, but there are a lot of people who talk about like, oh, my guides are saying this or whatever. And it's like, I know because it's just been talked about so much in like the esoteric community that everybody is supposedly born with like a spirit guide and angel protection, and that there's all these other like I was going to call them life forces, but I would say that they are like energetic forces that we don't know, don't understand, and don't see. So there are people, who have like clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairsentience, clair whatever, like you can smell things that aren't there. So these people have these things, but because there is always such a stigma behind it in like certain societies or times of life, then when people really have access to it, it's when they're younger and then they shut that down. They shut that down, So we all have this within us. But because I am this type of person who, like, when I listen to other people and they start talking about that kind of stuff that can't be seen, some people I admire them for it because their energy kind of is in frequency with mine and I know what they do in their normal daily lives. And I'm like, I respect you because you are like a normal functioning human too, not just like up in the clouds somewhere. And so I have this very analytical mind, um, in this way of like, I don't know, I have to have some like real proof in order for me to believe in something and in order for me to think that you're going to believe in me and in what I'm doing. So I had spent a lot of time watching other tarot readers. I had gotten like two or three readings in my life prior to discovering that there were tarot readers on YouTube. And this was not during a time when I was looking anything up for that. I was renovating my house um, after it had flooded. So I was doing a lot of work and like for like over a year. And so what I would do is I would just like I would put YouTube up on the TV and then I would just let it roll through its autoplay. And I would usually do things like music. But I don't know, this one day I started hearing something on the TV and I went to go and look to see what it was. And it was a tarot reader. Her name was Simone Ascending. That was like her handle at that time. And damn, she was like so talking about things that I needed to hear. And I was like, how is this even possible? And then I listened to another woman, and I can't think of what her name is right now, Marilyn or something like that. But her stuff was like so on point with where I was at in life as far as like the situation that I was in. And I was like, holy cow, I really needed to hear that because nobody else in my life was willing to talk to me like that or even understood the oversight of what was going on, even though they could like clearly see it. But everybody like lives in denial, and so they don't want to actually talk to you about your problems and stuff like that that they can see and say like, "Hey, you're more valuable than all the things that you're accepting." So I started listening to tarot readings that way. And I was like, oh, this is amazing because it's. Hang on one second. My daughter is calling me. Okay, starting to get warm out here, which is great because I feel like this summer is like over because the mornings are a little bit cooler. So I left my sweatshirt in the house because I had to go in the house. And I picked up a guidebook from one of my tarot decks because I don't like to be told what to do. I don't like directions on things and I don't like traditional stuff that I don't feel, if something is meant for me, it's very easy for me to remember it and memorize things or to feel at one with it. And a lot of times, um, I will like read through how a spread is supposed to be set up, but I can never put it to memory. Okay. So I have to keep looking it up. It's like, then I just don't feel that it's meant for me. But now that I've gotten so like familiar with my cards and been doing readings online, though I don't do them with people individually. It's just not the way that life is right now, you know. It's like I can do all these things. I have knowledge in all these things, um, like hypnosis and energy healing and stuff like that. But it's like I don't like to work in a phase of discomfort where I feel like I'm out of alignment with things. And so I just I just know that the timing hasn't been right because of like stuff going on inside of me. It's like invisible stuff that I can't see of like, like what holds you back, right? Aren't you held back by certain things that you don't really know where they stem from? So that's why, like, on this channel, I also read from books that I've been wanting to learn from. And right now I'm reading The Body Keeps the Score, and I'm almost done with it. But there is so much gold in that book. And so I hope that you will like kind of jump over to that and listen to that too, because it really mirrors what's going on in these things, you know? And so when um I had somebody ask me like if I refer to certain guides or something as I'm doing the readings. I'm like, no, I'm so analytical, right? It's like if I heard things, if I saw things, I would explain to you what that is like so that you could identify it within yourself because everything is like considered imagination, right? If you can't see it, it's considered your imagination, but that is the truth. That is the true, like the truth of this world is that um what you imagine is what you can that's like the bag that you're pulling from of how you want to set up your world, right? Like if you were designing a little Lego world, it's like in your real life, well, first of all, you have to come up with the idea of what you want that world to look like before you start assembling it. And that's why like Legos and Lincoln Logs and things like that are the best toys for kids because it requires this critical thinking, right? It requires this invention type brain. And that is the benefit of you using your imagination still instead of like everybody tells you like, oh, you're just imagining that or whatever. It's like to be able to imagine things is the only way to get the best case scenarios for things because it's very easy to imagine things going wrong because we have things in our environment that constantly remind us of that, like the news. Watch the news. How about insurance? Isn't that like a fear tactic for support, right? It's like, but how many times have you had to spend money on like repairs on your home or repairs on your car that obviously insurance isn't going to cover, or even things that they should cover, and they don't because you have to like prove that you need it and you don't want to get penalized by paying higher fees, all this stupid stuff, right? So it's like we do imagine the worst, and that's why we keep repeating the same things, or we imagine like, man, work sucks. So that's what we think about it. Well, we're just creating another day that looks like it sucks at work. Okay. So start playing with your imagination, start seeing if these things are true. If you want to shift a little bit, you can't just wish that you won the lottery. You have no idea what that looks like, okay? But you know what a good day at work feels like, and you can imagine that more often. You just imagine what the feeling is like, and you remember what it looked like when you were having those feelings. And that can bring about more of that stuff. And hopefully it looks like a different, like the environment is going to be it's not going to be the exact same thing, right? Same thing never happens twice in your life, period. That's a fact. You might have cycles that look similar, but it's not the same thing. So, what I'm trying to say is that you need to tap into your imagination if you want any sort of like true guidance or understanding of like who you are and what is true and what is not. And that's all I'm really doing as I am like reading through the cards. It's not that I'm talking to guides because I don't think that the way that my brain works would really accept that. Now, I might move forward into places of where I'm more in alignment with this part of myself and I might accept things, and that opens me up to more, more like clairaudience or clairvoyance or whatever. But as of right now, I kind of look at like all the external stuff, if it really exists, which it does, all the energetic stuff, it knows that I exist. It knows that I am in partnership with it. It knows that everything that I've ever done in my life has been in alignment with something inside of me. Um, though I was trying to be aligned with what people were telling me outside of me because they were my superiors, right? They were my parents, my guides in life, teachers, and things like that. And so it's like I already know that because I'm in such a space of isolation and like doing my own thing, where it's almost like as if God has prevented me from ever getting caught back into like the matrix way of life. Okay. So I know that the technology that I have that is like what I see as my guide is my brain because my brain I find works differently than other people. It's not that other people don't have access to the same things that I do. It's that because I've been in isolation for so long in my life since childhood, I've really learned how to just um when my brain is like whispering the truth about a situation for of something, it's like what a really good critically analytical person would be doing, right? Like a crime scene investigator or something like that. They're picking up on all these clues, and because they have experience with it and they're good at like getting these intuitive hits and like following them, then they can figure things out. They're like magicians, right? But it's not. It's like, and that's what I am. I'm like a crime scene investigator for tarot, okay? So it's not that I get to hear other things that are speaking to me, but that if I think of a song, then I'm going to tell you that song because it's my brain that's like producing the song, and it might be that something that I'm seeing triggered something in my subconscious. So it doesn't matter whether you call it your subconscious or your guides or whatever. What you need to have is the agreement of honesty within yourself of like what you feel like it is. Like, don't feel crazy if you hear voices. We all hear voices all fucking day long. It's that we think it's our own voice. And that's what the chapter that I just read about in the book was talking about, is that we have emotional outbursts or certain parts of our personality that like come out when we don't want them to, or they're like not really parts of ourselves that we really want to be identified as, but it's because our ego is trying to protect us, and they're coming from the voices of our past who came from other flawed individuals who said that like we were flawed and things were our fault. You know, like if your parents are blaming you for them being angry, right? It's like a parent never has to be angry at their child, just like you as an adult never have to get pissed off about anything. It's the truth. What is really worthy of getting mad about? You know, like, does it happen in your daily life? If you can think about something that would be worthy of getting mad about, like fuming angry to where you're yelling at somebody and you want to hurt them, I would have to think it would be somebody threatening your family, right? That's the only thing that I think about getting pissed off about. Um, and I never really have to go into that. Though, you know, the people who threaten my family are usually the ones within it. And that's not like my direct family. That's like um partners that I've been with throughout time, you know? And I'm like, you're an enemy like within protected space. Why would you be like that, you know? So anyway, um yeah, so the guide that I use is my brain and my thoughts, and I just don't turn them off. It's a treat. Okay, so to get back onto a focus, um, I do think that what led me into those auto-fed tarot readings from YouTube back in like 2016, 17, I would say it was that I had come across the concept of twin flame, and I don't even know how I found it out, but I think that everybody who um finds out about that has some sort of like inner need to know it so you can make sense out of some sort of things that don't seem like they make sense. Okay. And so I think that if you do know about twin flames, I'm not going to get all into it right now, but I think that there are different cycles of things that were happening. And I think that people who are meant to be in partnership, um, they had a period of time. There was like an open window for partners to get in partnership with each other, because for the purposes of like God put you together because you're supposed to have this love that you show the world. And it's not like you're supposed to train people how to be in love. It's that you have this divinity between each other that once you learn to get in harmony, then your energy just expands so that it ripples out and touches everyone around you. And that is how we were supposed to improve the world. Now, there's a lot of people who got on board with that when they were supposed to. And then there's a lot of people within like the past 2 years. I think the last 2 years was sort of where the doors were closing on that, and you had your opportunity. And then, you know, I would say within like towards the beginning of this year, was when the doors shut completely. And the person who was like following the divine path of what you're supposed to do to be in harmony with your twin, the ones who were really doing the spiritual work, they finally got to this point of where they're like, I am shutting the door on this concept of this twin flame. And I just welcome anybody who is in harmony with me now because I have done so much work to ascend myself and to achieve unity within. And now people have been getting divine partnership that is more of like what you would call a soulmate or a new twin that stepped in because the other person gave up their assignment from God. Okay. So like if you were connected to that stuff, let the old stuff go and welcome in something that is not difficult. Okay. Because I promise you that is what personally happened to me. It's like I finally had a partner come in and I was like in kind of rejection of relationships. I didn't need it because there was so much stuff that I had to work on with myself after like a previous destructive relationship that I'm like, I don't want to be distracted by that at all. I like need to rebuild myself from these spaces of where I was putting all my effort into putting out fires caused by other people. So I had a partner come in exactly the way that I thought a partner should, okay? And in a way that I had never experienced it before. And he is so easy to get along with. I can't even understand it. We don't even speak the same language. And it's the easiest, most like enjoyable thing that sometimes your mind will get involved and be like, this is too easy. What is the catch, right? And so that's the self growth that you have to go through once you are in a proper partnership is that your mind's going to do these things of like where it feeds you the old information and warning signs. Um, and then you have to go through a new level of like shadow healing, okay? But that is a beautiful one. And if you've gone through tons and tons of shadow healing in the past because of like physical problems in your environment. This is just a mental problem. It's extremely easy to get over. It's a mental problem from old trauma, okay? And all you have to do is remind yourself, like, is there a problem here right now? Is there an actual problem here right now? No? Okay, then let me just let that one go. Okay, let me acknowledge it for trying to protect me from like the things that happened in my past, but now I can let it go. All right. So, anyway, so I think that by finding stuff about twin flames, there was people who would talk about twin flames who were also tarot readers, and that was how I got fed the tarot readers. And so I said I had found the first one, and then the second one that I had found, her name was actually Marlene. And I watched her for like 2 years. And then one night, it was like in December, and I had moved from where I was in Louisiana when I first heard of her and up to New York, where I am now. And I was watching a reading of hers, and it was like late at night, and it was like super snowy outside. There was like nothing to do, and my kids were asleep. So I'm watching her. And then I hear her like pause and stop and say, sorry, guys. I'm from like Buffalo, New York area, and there's all these snowplows going by that are very loud. And I was like, holy shit, I didn't even realize that when I started watching her in Louisiana, that she was actually from the area that I ended up moving back to. This is like where I was originally from, not exactly, but like one town over. So, so then you just end up energetically like being woven with certain people, whether you're in person or not, okay? And then they bring you into alignment with certain things that are calling from within you. Okay. I don't necessarily. Oh, yes, I was talking about how the woman Marlene, I found out that she was from the same area that I was from, and I thought that that was so incredible because how in the world did the algorithm back then in 2017 like direct her towards me at that time? M- you know so there's all this like orchestration going on outside of our control that we have no idea of, and because all outcomes are possible, I don't do tarot readings as like predictive thing, okay? Because we can all listen, things like remote viewing, um reading other people's minds, telepathy, things we're all doing it all the time, okay? When you're thinking about somebody and you're wondering where they are, there's part of you that is like remote viewing possible outcomes of where they are and actual outcomes of where they are, okay? So I'm telling you that this stuff is always going on. You just don't hear it labeled that way. And so I give you permission to just exist in who you are and what your brain computer was gifted with and the ideas that are unique to you. Because if you don't have confidence in yourself, then nobody else will. Because if I'm like, well, I'm a tarot reader and I do that, right? It's like because a lot of times I was doing that because I'm like, I know people aren't really going to like that. But now I've realized, okay, well, that's the energy that I'm giving to this thing that I am really interested in. but I'm interested in it for me. But I just want to draw in a life of like people, places, and things that are in alignment with me. So the best thing that I can do is to say it as like this is what I do, this is what I am, this is what I've been guided to do, right? By I don't know, just by my own interests of what I've always been like since I was a kid. And what that's going to do is it's going to like make you an authority figure of who you are and what you do. And it's going to turn people off right away so they get out of your way, or it's going to turn people on right away and they're going to like, you're going to see a shift within them of whether they accept it or reject it. Okay. Because we all have places of acceptance and rejection for who we are and the things that we're doing and the things that we believe in. We always feel like we're imposters, don't we? It's like in the job that you know that you're successful enough to do, you still have doubts of like, well, I don't know, blah, 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 it's like, all right, so we're this like amalgamation of a bunch of different things. And it's not so much like guides that I have necessarily that I don't know of. It's that there are certain things that have come into my life that I have really enjoyed the messages of when I read about them or when I hear about them. And just off the top of my head, the things that I can tell, or the people that I can tell you that I've really enjoyed, and I think that they are all passed on from their physical body, is Johnny Cash for sure. That's like the first person who's coming up. Bruce Lee, Carl Jung, ISIS has been like really prevalent, like Egypt in particular, King Tut in particular, people throughout the ages that I have just really been hyper obsessed with. New Orleans in general, just everything New Orleans, um, Haiti for whatever reason. Like, and then I was told I had a past life. There was like a voodoo priestess that I went to go and see in New Orleans, and she said that, you were one of the rebels of who led the Haitian rebellion, not like the leader, but in support of the leader. I was also told by a tarot reader in New Orleans, like this was the first tarot reading I ever got when I was 22, because my mom took me there, even though she was not in support of any of that stuff. I was leaving for the army, and she supported me by saying like, I want to take you to New Orleans in case you die when you join the army. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. So she was like raised me in the Christian church and stuff like that, even though she's not a through and through Christian by the books. um, she still kind of accepts the Christian way of life and rejects certain things. So she doesn't really like the dark stuff like my father does, like horror movies and stuff. But my father does not believe in the esoteric at all, like as far as like spirits and all this other stuff. But he's kind of the one that got me into it, even though he's not. So, so there was a voodoo shop called Marie Laveau's voodoo shop or something like that, and it's kind of like a touristy shop, um, but I can't remember what street it was on, but it's down in New Orleans. And so we went into it, and then I saw that there was a sign that there was a man who was doing tarot readings, and his name was Michael. Now, I have always had lots of people in my life named Michael as far as like friends, and I had heard of Archangel Michael. So that's another thing that I like kind of vibe with. Um, so I was like, oh, that would be so fun. And my mom was like, just go ahead and do it, and I'll wait outside. And I was like, oh, okay, thank you. So I went to this reader, and I was young. I was 22, so I didn't have much life accumulated. But what he was talking about, like what he was reading from an Egyptian deck, and I think it's like this Lo Scarabeo company now, because I think I've gotten that card. I remember one of the first things that he said is, "Are you about to take a trip?" Because I was trying to be like real secret and not tell him, not show my hand. And but literally he did end up looking at my hand, and it's just so many things of what he said resonated with me. And then especially in the future too. But he had asked me if I was going to take a trip, and I think what the card was, because I remember it being like a boat. And now after knowing tarot, I think it was a Six of Swords card, which is usually somebody is leaving in a boat with six swords in the boat with them. And I was like, no, I'm not taking a trip. Well, I was just about to leave for the army. Okay, I was just about to leave for the army like a few weeks from that point. And so then finally he was like, "So you're not taking a cruise or anything like that?" I was like, "No." And he was like, "Well, are you making some sort of transition in life?" I was like, "Well, I'm about to leave for the army." And he was like, "Well, okay, that's a huge transition, right?" So all these things that he had said ended up becoming true. Now, the reason why I think that is I don't think that people are necessarily predictive. I think that there are people who can um they go with what's being shown, and they can like sort of identify that this is one possible outcome for you. And it's like, how in alignment are you with those outcomes? Because that's the one that you are going to bring up, you know? So I would say, like, don't get too wrapped around, like, the concept of like, well, they said that, so it must happen, or like, I am going to have to. I was watching an old episode of Designing Women where Charlene, she would go and see her like psychic every week or so, and she was talking about how she was going to meet a man by with certain initials and a mole on his face, and they were going to get married. Well, then this man that they described sort of like ended up coming into their business because he won a contest, but this dude was like kind of homeless, sort of. He was like real crazy, and she kept like thinking, "I'm gonna have to marry this man." Okay, it's not like that. It's not like that. So anyway, I'm just saying that energy cannot be created nor destroyed. So the concept of past lives and all this other stuff. Now, I've had quantum healing hypnosis therapy, or whatever the T stands for, and it's basically like past life regression, but it was experienced by Dolores Cannon. I think she was kind of the one who tapped into this, to where people were jumping not just into their past, like, or not past lives necessarily, because a lot of this is how past life regression was discovered, was that hypnotists and therapists will try to get somebody to regress into their past to uncover unknown memories, or non-accessible memories. And what happened was that somebody jumped into like a different life. They weren't remembering their own life, they were remembering somebody else's. And I think that there is a huge book that I used to have called something like The Apple Doesn't Fall Far from the Tree. And it was like all these different stories of people um, who were talking about past lives in their present life. And then they were going back to find out like where this person was from in their past life. And they would meet like the families of who they were talking about, right? It was like it was especially this child, James from Louisiana. A lot of people have heard about him. He was a pilot in World War II named James. Okay. It's not like the parents knew that before he was born, but there is an energy signature about your soul when it comes in. And so your name is like chosen for a bigger reason than what it seems like. Okay, like my name is Dale, uh and I was like, why would my parents name me that? It's like not a family name. It was just the name of a baby that my mother grew up next door to, but he was a boy. And so I was like, why would you name me a boy's name? She said, well, because if you were a boy it was going to be Dale Paul, and if you're a girl it was Dale Lynn. It's like, yeah, but that like totally formed who I was, of like this nerdy boy's name. Because even anybody who is named Dale in like cinema and entertainment, my dad would always say this: how come all the dumb people are named Dale, right? Think back about any characters that you know named Dale. They're like either real country or like not very smart, like Chip and Dale and whatever. So it forms who you are. So anyway, the point of what I'm trying to say is that when people say that they have past lives and situations like this, it's like, I don't think that what it is a past life. What I think it is that it's a certain energy that channels through multiple people, and then they get recognized or being empowered by this energy. And that you have a certain access point, which is your brain, that like sort of draws in is and is excited by these same energies, right? So you want to pursue certain paths for you that other people wouldn't, right? We all have personalities. Where the hell do they come from? We're all raised up in the same households, same environments, even though it's never ever really the same, because once another child is born, those parents can't be the same parents they were for the first child, or whatever, so I'm just saying that like there's astrological influence that can explain that. That's why I prefer astrology, because it has sacred meaning. So what I think is that what gives me guidance is the history of all of the knowledge that I have learned in my life, based on these certain like historical characters that I have been drawn to. Like what's it, who's another one? Right? It's Bruce Lee for sure, Brandon Lee for sure, really like activated me. I wouldn't have known Bruce Lee really if it weren't for Brandon being in The Crow, and then The Crow really, it's like, that's why I have this deck here, Murder of Crows. That's why I have my original Crow deck, Crow Tarot. And they've always been significant to me. So there's something about the energy of crows that I really have an attunement with too. And all I mean when I say attunement is that I'm aligned with it. I understand it. So what do you understand without having to be explained to? That is where you're in alignment. Or what are you extremely rejecting that you don't want to believe in? Because there's probably a real alignment within you with that thing too, but you discovered it when you were young because you were just like talking or doing things, and then people shut you down because it was like weird to them and they didn't understand it because they were shut down themselves in the past. Okay. So, yeah. So I don't think that it's like that we lived in these other places or whatever, or we are those other people. I think it's that certain people that are presently embodied have access to a certain energy that wants to come back in and have influence over the earth again, right? And that's why it's important for you to be in alignment with your heart, because that's what keeps you connected to those energies. And your heart knows things before your mind does. It's just a fact. Okay. It's just a fact. So if you want me to direct you to resources, I would say go look into the Heart Math Institute. I would say look into Dr. Joe Dispenza. And that's all I can think of for right now. But yeah, so when I'm like reading, it's influenced by all of this stuff that I've absorbed in my life over time. Oh, Archangel Michael would be the like number one spiritual unseen thing that I feel like I have connection to because there's been so many people in my life named Michael, because I have such a draw to like knives and swords and things like that. Like not like samurai swords necessarily, but I've always been obsessed with infomercials about knives where they were like cutting things. I love to cut things, and Archangel Michael is the archangel with the sword. He's got like the sword of truth and discernment and protection. And, so I think that there's a certain alignment that occurred with him and dictates part of like my personality and why I am that way. It's like I've always said, if I ever had to like defend myself and murder somebody, I would want to do it with a knife because I would want the reflection of that up close and personal um, action. So that I could like take responsibility for what I'm doing. I think a lot of people it's real easy to kill people with a gun, like in the 80s and 90s when gangs got real popular because like everybody started having guns, right? And it's like that's because it became easy to take lives because you realize you can do it within a second. But if you had to do it with your bare hands, could you really do it? It's like I hope I never have to do it. That is my hope. All right. But I was in the army, so I was trained for these things and we did bayonet training and stuff like that. So it's like I want to feel the repercussions of the actions that I have to take in this world. I don't want to be distanced from them. So anyway, so yeah, Archangel Michael, I feel like he's my main protector. He's my homie. And then more recently, within the past couple of years, I would have to say Saint Germain, which is like you should just look into him. He's like the holder of the violet flame, and the violet flame is like this thing that you can use to kind of burn out negativity in your environment and protect yourself. Um, I painted a picture last year around this time that was like a hand holding the violet flame, and that's because I wasn't letting my head get in the way of like my paintings. I was trying to get a bunch of work done at one time, and so I was just like letting whatever wanted to come through. I was like letting my fears and ego doubts go and just going with the ideas that came through. And those paintings came out so much quicker than any other paintings that I've ever done and with such better like precision than what I am capable of. Okay. So that's this benefit in surrendering over to like, a lot of times I think that's why people procrastinate is because then they put themselves into a space of surrender where they have to do the thing and they don't let their mind get in the way. They just go into the channel, right? It's like because your mind is like, we have to get it done now. We have no more time, right? So you can get yourself out of procrastination if that's the type of person that you are, simply by recognizing that that might be the pattern and learning how to get into it on your own, which is like what meditation would be, if that's really what you want to call it. But you can succeed with your meditation by choosing a hobby, just one, and then working at it every day, right? Because sitting down to work on it, it seems all exciting at first because you're like picturing the outcome that you want to happen. And then when you go to sit down, everything slows down and friction occurs, right? And and you're like, damn, I'm not good at this thing, right? But if you sit down every day to do it and you get through first uncomfortable, it's probably like 30 seconds, right? Maybe up to 5 minutes. Sit through that discomfort, and that allows you to like tap in every day to something beyond yourself. Okay. That's how you get over procrastination, you know? All right. So, what I am going to do, this was just sort of like a talk through of like how I deal with the world outside of the physical world. And I have had to deal with it and realize that there's something else because I have followed the rules of the physical world and had completely opposite outcomes from what they were supposed to be. So I'm like, there is clearly something else going on here. And there are clearly not many people around me that experience life like I do, or think of life the same way that I do, or have a memory like I do, or have oversight, just like control of their emotions like I do, right? And so once I started to expand my awareness into the like working in the spiritual field, which I have had times like before the internet was really popping off with a bunch of spiritual people, I've had times where I run into spiritual opportunities um, as a youngster. And when I was with those people in places, I was like, this is where I'm accepted. But a lot of them were like very flighty, and I am very grounded and very well trained in business and what works and psychology, just because it makes sense to me. Okay. I don't think I need to go to school for years and years to like get a piece of paper to prove to me that I already know what I know. And because, especially when you get technical training in something, it diverges you off the path of what you already know. And it sits you back in a place of where you're more limited by the boundaries of the thing instead of where you started off at, which was limitless potential. Okay. So it's a long, that's a long thing. I hope you have some understanding from it and some cohesion from it. But now that I have like gotten myself all these different decks, and I've never really wanted to follow the guidebooks before. Now I find a place of where, okay, now I want to go in and follow the guidebooks. Now I want to do the reading that is directly written for each card, because what I'm doing is I get to honor the energies that were channeled through the creators of all of these decks. Okay. So this is the end of this video. And then what I'm going to do, because I found this guidebook, I'm going to do it by the book and read to you about some things. And we're going to take the time just to do it in the traditional way. Okay. See you soon.